In the Slammer. 35 years inside with Noel Razor Smith.
Hello and welcome to In the Slammer, 35 years inside with Noel Razor Smith. My name's Elliott Frisby and this is the podcast where we talk the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I want to talk more about a podcast, Noel, which we did previously, and we started going into talking about rehabilitation.
Yeah.
And I think this is quite a good thing to talk about because I'm hoping that, you know, some people will be watching this who maybe will gain from this. You know, they'll think about their other options and you know, what it's actually like inside. Now, you are the commissioned editor at the Inside Time newspaper.
Yeah.
All right, so you've got some good content to tell people. You can also advise people as well. All right, so can you just tell us a little bit more about the newspaper before we crack on?
Yeah, actually the paper was started as a result of the strange ways and other riots in 1990 in this country. I don't know if people know about that. It was a massive 25 days. The guys stayed on the roof. Prison was wrecked. 2 people died. And I think it was 29 other prisons around the country kicked off in sympathy with them. So the prison system in those days was absolutely terrible. I know I was in it. And we kicked off in Wandsworth as well at the same time. But it was a terrible system. And what happened was the riots happened, worldwide news, and the government appointed Lord Chief Justice Wolf to look into the disturbances. And he produced a report. And one of the things that he said in his report, he made many recommendations, but one was that prisoners had no voice outside of prison. So he suggested that something be set up for prisoners who, independent of the prison service, could ask their questions about what was happening to them and get an answer and maybe air their views. And out of that, a guy called Eric McGraw and John Roberts and Rachel Billington, Lord Longford's daughter, set up this newspaper for prisoners, a free newspaper, national prison newspaper, called Inside Time. And they asked for contributions, and almost from the first issue I was writing in, well, from the first issue. And I kind of honed my writing in those pages over the years whilst I was in prison. And when I got out, I was offered a job, and I took up the job with them, and I work with them to this day. So I'm quite in touch, even though I haven't been in prison for a while, I'm quite in touch with what's going on in prison because it's my job to read the letters and the articles every day.
Oh, sorry, you are in touch. I mean, you know, you're very in touch. I mean, how much more in touch can you be? Yeah. I mean, that's just, so you actually get content coming out from the prison.
Daily.
Yeah. You know, and you have to, is that emotional? I mean, for you personally as well, I mean, you spent a lot of time inside. Does that trigger emotions for you? Do you want to just give them a call and just say, look, mate, you know, how does that, what's that like for you?
I kind of, when I first started at the job, I was getting mailbags, letters from guys in prison. And I was thinking, my God, that was me 5 years ago or me 10 years ago. You know, it's very gripping because you think to yourself, things haven't changed. You know, the same problems I had 20 years ago in prison, somebody else is having them now. So it was, you know, I could understand what people were saying and where they were coming from, whereas the other people who worked in the office, apart from one guy, had never been in prison. They're all quite nice people, but they've never spent a day in prison. So I kind of became their prison oracle, if you like. You know, if anybody wanted to know something about prison, they would come to me in the office. But actually reading the words of people, and a lot of times people, even family members who are left in prison, who are still in prison, write to the paper. And, you know, it keeps you in touch. It keeps you grounded because I know people who've been out of prison 6 years and completely forgot about the prison system. You know, they don't want to know. But then there's other people who I know who you could meet someone, you haven't seen them for 20 years, and you go, Parkhurst, Friday, tea time, and they go fish cakes, you know, because prison's so ingrained into them. Everything's so ingrained in them. So for me, it was a good way of keeping in touch with people in there and actually keeping in touch with the grievances because my last 10 years of prison or my last 20 years, rather than physically fighting them, I was actually, I put in a lot of written complaints about things that needed to be complained about. And I could see, once I got educated, I could see how bad the system was and where the shortcomings were. And it always amazed me that nobody else in power in the government or in the prison system could see them. And if they did see them, they didn't really care. You know, prison's prison. Nobody gets a sympathetic hearing from prison. if you mention prisoners to the public, they say let them rot, give them hay to eat, put them in a dungeon. That's generally the attitude of people. Not all of them, but a large majority. So to be in that sort of thing and know about it and know what people were talking about was invaluable for me.
So with we're talking rehabilitation. So part of what you're doing is rehabilitation for many of them as well, because they're voicing their opinions. So you are actually now part of that process in many ways, because by giving them a voice, surely you were talking about like the anger management and all that sort of stuff, but surely by giving them a voice, and this is what's just coming through my head here, is that surely that's one of the best rehabilitation, because what they're doing is they're going, I'm being heard.
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of time, if you look at like kids and stuff like that, they need to be heard. If you don't listen to a kid, oh, shut up, go off you go, they're going to go off and cause trouble because they're holding it in. So do you consider yourself now that you are part of that? And within the Inside Time newspaper, when they read it, is there help in there? Were you in this line of crime, or this can help you when you get out? Do you have all that stuff in there as well?
Yeah, I mean, Inside Time is actually known as the voice of the prisoner. That's our subheading. And, it's... if you need to know a question, but this is another frustrating thing about prison. You can ask 20 prison staff the same question about the prison and you'll get a different answer every time. Because even though they're prison officers, they don't sit down and read the rules. The rules are massive. I mean, you would need a long time to read the rules and understand them. And they change the rules all the time, PSOs and PSIs. So you can never get a straight answer in prison. And
what PSOs and PSIs?
PSIs are prison service instructions.
Right.
And PSO are prison service orders.
Okay.
That means if tomorrow they decide nobody's allowed to have the Mirror newspaper, they'll send out a PSO saying, so the law changes all the time with these things. So you can ask all these questions in jail, and normally the only person you get a proper answer for is someone who's been through it. So what we do with Inside Time is people can now write to us and ask the question, and we will go out of our way to find out what the proper answer to that question is. And prison staff on the whole only know the rules that sort of pertain to them, and the rules that they want to nick you for are all well embedded in their minds. And we used to have a PO in Albany Prison, and we used to call him the Mirror Man. And the reason his nickname was the Mirror Man was because you'd ask him any question about the prison and he'd say, I'll look into that. And he'd never get back to you. I'll look into it. And that's basically, so I'll tell you what.
But you look into it and you get back to them.
We get the official answer for it. People are allowed, through the paper, they can write in to question HMPPS, which is the word NOMS. They run the whole prison system. So if you want an answer to a question and you get 10 answers in jail, all different, you can write into the paper and we will give you the real answer. We'll go out of our way to find out. So it's a lifeline it's also for information for prisoners, but it's also a lifeline for people writing. Writing is one of the few things you can do in prison. You've got the solitude, you've got the tools to do it if you can do it. And we have had some great writers over the years who have come through Inside Time and then went on to be, actual writers doing job outside as writing. And I'm really proud of that, the fact that we showcase this talent. There's a lot of talent in jail that never sees the light of day. But we kind of showcase that. We've got people who are chess experts who write chess columns for us. We've got gym experts who will write out workouts for prisoners in their cells. And these people, this is where you get your information and your entertainment. We put on quizzes, we do crosswords, we do a bit of everything.
See, I can't help, you're saying about all this talent, and I can't help, because I'm a big believer in this. I'm a big believer that, if you've got someone who's got a spray can and doing some pretty awesome art on the wall, don't knock them for that. Go and, commission them to do something. Do you know what I mean? Because, otherwise, you're wasting a lot of stuff. If you've got someone who's great at cracking codes and things like that, swipe them up and use them. Do you know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. But for me, I'm just thinking that what I'm hearing here is that you're giving people a voice, and people who have got a voice and being heard are generally often able to go forward and do something better. So going back to the rehabilitation inside, all right, what is working inside? All right, we've talked about stuff that isn't working. What is working inside?
Well, as I said before, the rehabilitation is very few and far between in the prison system. It's kind of a hit and miss thing. I mean, an example being about 4 years ago, for the paper, I went down to Rochester prison in Kent. It used to be a Balsall, it's now a prison, a young person's prison. And they had a course down there where they were teaching prisoners to be stonemasons. Right? It's an amazing job to be a stonemason. It's a skilled job. And they were doing the first year of the apprenticeship in prison. And then they had guaranteed jobs from English Heritage, who were forever doing up buildings, historic buildings around the British Isles, and have a shortage of stonemasons. So that would be fantastic. Take people in prison, make them into stonemasons. They've got a skilled job and they will never be out of work and they'll be able to take care of themselves. Now, that sounds great, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
The problem with it was the prison held 600 young men. They could only do 12, and the course took a year. So 12 people a year out of those 600 were getting trained up. Now, that's good. 12 people are going clear and actually getting a skill and actually getting a job. But what about the other 280? It's kind of like that. So there's a little island. You'd look at it and you'd think, do you know what? That's a worthwhile thing, and that is rehabilitation. Taking someone who had nothing, no skills, no job, teaching them something that they can use for the rest of their lives, a decent paid job that they can get when they almost guaranteed. That's fantastic. But what about the rest of the people?
Yeah, but that isn't even like that. But that's just one job, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's 12. Okay, well, let's come up with some more. Like, MonkeyNut Audiobooks. I could, get someone who's got an interest in audio and stuff. I could train them up to be an editor.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could do that. So if you imagine on a massive scale here.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people that could be trained up. Yeah. And for me, so I feel like getting quite heated here. I don't know nothing, that's why I'm interviewing and asking you. But I'm getting a bit heated up because I'm thinking to myself about when you were saying about the 75,000 people. Now, there's going to be people who are going to argue with that, aren't there? But there's going to be a lot of them. That seems a pretty good option there. So I'm going to throw in, let's look at the time. Yeah, I'm going to throw in this question, and I reckon this is a podcast within itself. I'm just going to go for it. And I'm just going to say, with the amount of money, and privatisation that's in the prison system, do they actually want that to happen, considering that it's a money business? All right, you're smiling there. So I'm just going for this, I'm just putting it out there. Do they want everybody out? Do they want them to find a way, a better way?
Well, I've always argued about that over the years. I mean, the fact is, a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of the prison system is privatised. Not only do we have actual privatised prisons that are run by the public sector, run by the private sector rather, but everything else is privatised. Our canteen is run by DHL bookers in prison. So you can't go, there's a monopoly. You can't buy from someone else. You have to buy from them at their exorbitant prices. This month in Inside Time, we've had several letters about DHL putting their prices up just out of the blue. During the pandemic, during lockdown, when nobody in prison can work and they've got no money, they're selling a bottle of sun cream for $7.99 in some prisons, which is more than a week's wages, and there's no sun and they can't get out in the yard. This is how mad it is. But also, prison transport is privatised.
Sorry, mate. I'm sorry. We'll go into this further. You're telling me that people inside, they're working. We haven't talked about work, so I'm not going to go into too much detail because we're going to. But they're not getting much at all.
So the average wage is £7 a week.
Okay, £7 a week. Yeah. But there's a form of shop or something inside that you can go to
there
and
used to
buy.
Be a shop. There used to be an actual physical shop.
But those prices aren't respective to what they're earning.
No.
Oh, that's just ridiculous.
Look, I'll give you an example.
Yeah, please.
We had a letter yesterday from a guy, I think it was in Oakwood Prison, which is a privatised prison. He said, I've just been shocked. His first time in prison. He said, my Sunday Times newspaper got delivered because you can buy your own newspaper in jail. He said, and in it was an advert for Morrison's and their price cuts. He said, I'm looking at it and they're selling a tin of tomato soup for 35p. It costs 69p out of our canteen, the same tin of soup. He said, it's 99p for 454 grams of honey out of Morrison's. We pay $2.95 for 450 grams. So they're doubling the prices because they know you can't say, well, do you know what? I'm not going to buy from you because there's no one else to buy from. So when they get these contracts, canteens say, probably the worst of them. Prison transport's bad as well. But when they get these contracts, they're looking to make money out of prison. So what they do is they get prisoners to do all the packing and bagging. So they don't. All they have to pay them is a £12 a week wage, and that's it. And they're doing all their work for them. They have a rep in there. It's an amazing money spinner.
So you say what?
DHL.
Bookers,
yeah.
DHL Bookers. So would you say, if we say what we want here, all right, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, we're saying it as it is,
Yeah.
Should they be ashamed of themselves?
I think they should. I think anybody who gets involved in prison in a capacity to make profit out of it, that's immoral, surely. Surely that's immoral. You know, what the hell are we teaching people? That if you send people to prison, what you can do is you can take away most of their financial ability, pay them £7 a week, and then we'll send in a private company to rip the absolute piss out of them. And not only that, this is how it works. It's not like you going into a shop out here. This is how it works in jail. Instead of you going into a shop and seeing something, they will hand you a list on a Thursday with everything they sell. No pictures, just a list of everything they sell. You will then tick off your orders up to the amount of money you've got. You hand that list back in. 2 days later, they will bring your stuff onto the wing in a sealed bag, and you're supposed to look through the bag and make sure everything's there, because once you've taken that bag away, you cannot return it.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is this. You get it with home deliveries now, you may have noticed. You might order, say, 5 tins of tomato soup from Tesco's, and when the home delivery gets there, they say, oh, we had to swap that for 5 tins of mushroom soup. In jail, you'll order something like a bottle of lemonade, and they'll say, oh, we had to swap that for a tin of mushrooms. There's nothing you can do about it. You know, you're at the mercy of these companies, and we get so many letters about it, people complaining that they've been ripped off, about the prices. It's just madness.
See, what it's saying to me, Noel, is that, all right, I'm linking it all together. You see, that's the thing, right? Yeah. I'm learning from all this, okay? That's why we do this. I find it really interesting. I think it's something that needs to be explored further. And, you know, for me, I'm finding all of this fascinating, right? And would really like to hope that through this, some thought-provoking will be going on, and also some good will come out of all this as well, right? And especially, you know, with what you're doing in the newspaper, that's fantastic. Yeah. But, you know, you're going back about the anger management in the previous podcast, right? Yeah. Well, it's like I'll be thinking, you know, all right, you got to try and calm it down. You know, you got to calm down as a person. Count to 10. Yeah. But when it comes to your basic necessities, when it comes to shopping, we're going to piss you off. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to make you work. We're going to, you know, you're going to get your minimal money. Okay. And then we're going to do that. How's that going to make someone inside feel as a human being? That's just going to make them angry, surely.
Well, this is my whole point about the prison system, is that there's no joined-up thinking. There is no joined-up thinking. You've got one department. An example of this would be a security department. Up until relatively recently, you could not have a banana in prison, right? And the reason being is because in the 1960s, some hippies said that you could dry banana skins and smoke them and get high, right? Now, because of that, we never had a banana in prison because we might smoke the skins. Now, I pulled a governor in Albany Prison in 1998 or something like that. And I said, why are we not allowed to have bananas? And he said, well, because of the drug connotations. And I went, Governor, I said, take a look around this prison and you point out anybody to me in this prison who's in here for committing a crime through their addiction to smoking banana skins. I said, tell me where you see all these inner city
Did you actually say that?
Yeah. I said, tell me where you see all these inner city youths queuing up outside greengrocer shops early in the morning to get their banana skin fix. I said, you're talking absolute nonsense. Nobody smokes banana skins. I said, this prison's awash with heroin and spice, and you won't let us have a banana because we might smoke the skin and get a high. And he went, I agree with you, but what can I do? And that's mainly their answer is always, well, I agree and I can see it's nonsense, but what can I do? Because nobody wants to change nothing with prison. It's a secretive kind of enclave where people who get away with things can get away with things. It's a great place to go if you're a civil servant and you really don't want to be under scrutiny. You know, you can do basically what you like in prison. They don't do any, and this is another thing, they don't do any psychological tests on prison staff. You could be a psychopath and get a job in prison quite easily. You know, it's crazy. And these people, they like the status quo. A lot of them don't want it to change. And if someone comes in to try and change it and points out the anomalies and the mistakes, they get ostracised. You know, I've seen what they call prison officers who come in and they care about things. The other officers call them Care Bears and take the piss out of them. You're a Care Bear mug. they're prisoners. Give them nothing. You know, it's that kind of attitude, and they want it to keep going the way it is. Nobody likes change, and they particularly don't want their environment to change. Only the prisoners do.
All right, so just to wrap this podcast up, all right, there was loads of different directions we can go down with the privatisation, and we will do that. Yeah. But let's just stick with the food for a minute, all right? Yeah. Because that's hit me, actually. That one's got me. And I feel quite angry about that one, is that what should happen right now? Right now, just summarising it up, when it comes to things like shops, compared to like the wages, etc., what should be happening right now, which is better for people inside to make them feel like they're being respected. And of course, when you get respected, I think you're actually a better person when you feel like you're being heard and respected. So what should be happening in that area right now?
Well, I think one of the main things that they should do, and they've been talking about it for years, but whenever they talk about it, it gets shot down by the Daily Mail or the Sun or the Tory government, is they should be instilling a work ethic in prisoners. And that means giving prisoners a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. At the moment, as I say, the average wage is £7 a week. If you don't work, it's £2.50 a week. Now imagine trying to survive toiletries, phone calls, this covers everything. £2.50 a week. If you're going to change the system, give prisoners decent work that they actually feel as though they're doing a day's work, and give them the pay commensurate with that. You know, but what happens is every time anybody comes up with an idea to actually, because what a lot of prisoners, and this is the God's honest truth, a lot of prisoners, we get loads of letters about it, they would rather spend their time in jail working constructively and saving up so that when they get out, putting some money aside, so when they get out with their £46 in their hand, they're not going to be homeless, they'll be able to pay their way. But they can't do that on prison wage. You can't put anything away on prison wages. So give prisoners a decent work ethic and show them, because a lot of them don't know, that you can do a day's work and actually earn money from it. A lot of them, their only experience of work is prison. And they go into prison, why don't you work? Well, I've worked in prison, you get £7 a week and it's just rubbish. They put you on putting tea bags in bags. They don't realise you can work outside. If you take them inside and go, this is what could happen, you could actually work every week, every day, save up some money for your release, send some money to your family, and actually feel like a real worthwhile human person, a human being, then things would change. Because if people have got jobs and they've got a thought for the future, we can put money away. It teaches prisoners to save. They can't do that now. Let me save for my future. No, when you're in prison, you're getting £7 and you have to spend that and you ain't. I'll give you another mad example that's just drove me mad. What they done was, at the start of the lockdown, every prison, out of a fund, gave each prisoner free £5 a week phone credit so they could phone their families, yeah? Obviously, in all those thousands of prisoners, there's some who do not have any families or friends to phone. So what they were doing was using the £5 a week to save so that when they got out, they had the deposit on a flat or a bed sit or something like that. They thought, great, we'll do this. What did the government do, the prison system do? A couple of weeks ago, they went, yeah, even though that £5 is a gift, because don't forget they're not getting no visits in jail, they're locked up 23 hours a day. Even though that's a gift, if you accumulate more than £20 in the account, we're taking it back. So you can save up £20, but that's it. How crazy do you think that sounds to people? Yeah. We're giving you a free £5 a week to do what you like with, but if you don't spend it in 4 weeks, we're taking whatever's left. That's ridiculous.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's explore that further another time. I think it's just every time we do a podcast, we hardly touch the question, and I've got another 100 to ask you. It's mental. Noel, thanks very much, mate. No. Remember, if you want to get in touch, you've got a question for Noel. If you're going through something, you just want to sort of discuss it, you don't have to leave your name, or you've got a question, you're curious about what life was like inside, contact us at intheslammer@monkeynutuk.com. That's intheslammer@monkeynutuk.com. If you're watching on YouTube, then do leave a comment below, ask your questions below. We try to get back to everyone. I'm sorry if we can't get to them all. And of course, subscribe, share with your friends, and give it a thumbs up.
You've been listening to In the Slammer with Noel Razor Smith, hosted by Elliott Frisby, music by Andrew Stamp, produced by Chris Byland, recorded at MonkeyNut Audiobooks. For more information, visit the In the Slammer Facebook page or visit MonkeyNutUK.com. If you have a question or want to contact Noel Razor Smith, then please email intheslammer@monkeynutuk.com.